Laura Parra, and I've been using my husband's last name, so in San Antonio, they know me as Laura Codina, but here, I'm Laura Parra.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Laura.
Well, I grew up in Sunnyside, the neighborhood, El Barrio Sunnyside, and it's always been a very close neighborhood, with surrounded by friends and family. I remember my great-grandmother, Refugia Ibarra, who my mother had told me some stories about her, and I remember my great aunt, Basilia Gonzalez, married to Manuela Gonzalez, and my other aunt, Ponciana Moreno, married to Martin Moreno, and they all had children, and so they're my second cousins, and we grew up together there in the neighborhood. We used to have hay rides with the Ostranders, Emerson and Emerson family. They were the same family, but they were just linked. And in the fall, and in the summertime, we'd all be playing outside. We played a lot. You know, I don't see kids playing the way we used to play anymore. You know, we used to just run around. You know, I don't see that anymore.
Where was your favorite spot in Sunnyside to play?
Across the street from my mom's house.
And where did you live?
I live at 1628 Naomi, pretty centrally located in the barrio. And across the street, I remember that there was, well, my mother had explained to me that it used to be a restaurant and like a dance hall. But by the time we were growing up, they had separated the units into little apartments in the side and in the back. And then there was just one little store where you could buy milk and bread and raspas, the real kind of raspa, the kind that, you know, you raspar.
Snow cones?
Yeah, snow cones, known as snow cones now,
Yeah.
but the original raspa. And
Where was the store located? Was that on a corner?
right there in front of my mom's house. And there was one other home next to us. We were the second house from the corner of, I think it was Ruby Street and Naomi. We were the second house from the corner. And there was the Garcias that lived on the very corner across the street. The Garcias there, and then that large block of, you know, it was a pretty, it took about it took one big block of, you know, residence property, you know, and it was all solid. It was probably brick. And it got tumbled down a long time ago because it went into disrepair and all that. But I remember that my mom would say that it used to be a restaurant and a dance hall. But like I say, by the time I was growing up, you know, it wasn't being used in that way anymore.
Where did your family come from?
My mother came from, was born and raised in Cotula, Texas, which is in South Texas. And my dad, Melquiades Parra, he came, was born and raised in Laredo, Texas. But both of them left when they were fairly young, like in their early teens. My mother had been migrating since she was a youngster, and and then when she was about 14 or 15, they settled out from the migrant stream.
Where were they migrating to?
They were migrating up here to Michigan to work in the tomato fields. I remember my mom had told me that they were first lodged and housed in a place called Honkytown, near between Blissfield and Riga. And and she would tell me that she really liked going to the movies. They used to have Mexican movies down there. It was an little outdoor theater with just like a sheet, and benches, wooden benches. But she would just love to see the movies there, And so she, was watching Cantinflas and all those characters, Mexican. I wish we could have those kind of things again. Wouldn't it be fun?
Yeah, we have it on television now. So what year do you think your parents came up?
They started coming up when my mother was around 10. And she was born in 1925. If she was, more or less around 10.
So 1930s?
In the mid-1930s.
And when did they settle here?
She had gotten a job in 1939 at it used to be called Bridgeport Brass, across from the Sunnyside. And back in that day, she told me that, all the male workers had gone off to the war, because that's when the war, World War II, was gearing up, and so they started training the guys, as soon as they could. And with that loss in the factories, then that gave the rest of the people that were here, the opportunity to get a job. It was the war industry. So even though my mom could hardly speak any English, she had purchased or gotten somewhere a little Spanish-English pocket dictionary, and with that, she was able to, go and ask for a job, one time, and then the second day, and then the third day. And on the third day, the manager just, let her come in. Yes. So she was able to start working there. And, once, there were a couple people there and they saw how good, the women worked, and the men, started opening up for a lot of people.
Okay, who decided for your family that they would stay here?
My great-grandmother.
Okay, and why? Do you know?
Because of the job opportunities.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was real hard for them in Texas, in South Texas at that time, during the 30s, the Depression.
How did they come up here? Did they travel by car?
They traveled by car, and my mother would tell me that there was a little church that I still visit in San Antonio since I live there now. A little church just off of the highway. It's like a little chapel, and my great grandmother, Mama Cuca, would always stop and get a blessing from that place. Just a little visit, and to sanctify, el viaje, hasta el norte, because the car was old, and you never knew, what you were going to find in the highway, My mom remembers that they couldn't stop in certain places because it clearly said no Mexicans or niggers. And even later when we were traveling in the late 50s, and we were traveling down there. There were certain places that we couldn't stop because they clearly, indicated that, we weren't allowed there. So even though, we had to make the trip, to, pay promesas and that kind of thing, Joel, because that's why we would go down there. But when my mom was coming, it was for the work up here, because there was very little opportunity in South Texas at that point, and there was much more because of the war industry, and the sugar cane. There was just, a lot of stuff, el betabel. My mom was talking about picking el betabel,
What is that?
tomatoes.
What is that, Tabel?
Sugar beets.
Oh, sugar beets.
And so that's what they did, and they didn't really have to travel very far within Michigan to northern Ohio, to Indiana, northern Indiana, and just around the southern areas of Michigan to do betabel and other crops, pepinos.
Did you work in the fields?
Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, I started working when I was 8, and so my Social Security number is like way old. And even now, when I show it, wow, that's really when you must have been a kid, and I was, I was 8 years old when the farmers at one of the ranches insisted that we have our Social Security card, and so my mom just went to the authorities and applied for it. So all of us kids, if we were able to lift a basket then of tomatoes, then she went ahead and got it. So I have that.
Do you remember what you used to wear to go to work in the fields?
Well, my mother would always have us dressed like rancheros. So even like this, So and hats, wide brim hats. And I still kind of
Memory.
Yeah. Now I do it for other reasons, but she'd always have us covered completely, and we would sweat, and it was so uncomfortable. But any indication of our trying to peel our layers off, no, te va a quemar el sol, tienes que respetar el sol, es bravo el sol. She had come from Texas, so she knows, the power of the sun. The sun is still powerful. And now we have the additional issues of, skin cancer and that kind of stuff.
Do you remember how much you got paid?
10 cents a bushel, guy. Yeah, 10 cents a bushel. And, bushels about that big, and, you had to copetear them, with a copete.
In English?
Heaped.
Okay.
So it'd be like a mound on top. And then we'd have to carry it to the edge of the circos, the rows, so that the wagon pulled by the tractor could pick them up and put them on the wagon, so that they could take them to the factory, to the candy factory, so they could do whatever. I later worked in the candy factory even. I was in high school though.
Which one was it?
Right here in Adrian.
Okay.
Yeah, just off of I guess it's Michigan Street. Yeah. During my junior year, and my senior year.
Do you remember lunchtime when you were out in the field?
Oh yeah. Those were delicious times. First of all, we had to clean our hands. There was no water, no running water out there. So we had to clean our hands with the tomato itself. And my mom taught us that. They had to get a fresh tomato right from the field, and that would just wipe all the grime off, you know? Because, you know, there were pesticides and all kinds of chemicals on those plants, and, you know, we'd have to, you know, even though I was wearing gloves, you know, it would seep right through the gloves, because, you know, there weren't rubber gloves back then. And so that's what my mom had us do. And we had a canteen of water, a big old jug of water that my Mama Cuca would take with us. And she was too old to work, my Mama Cuca, my great-grandmother. But since she raised my mom, she would go with us to the fields and be preparing the taquitos at the stove, you know, well, con leña, you know, and rocks. And she would be just heating up the beans and calentando las tortillas, you know, warming up the tortillas on the comal that she had, you know. She would take it out there, put it on the rocks, and have her little lumbre out there. And those were just the best taquitos, the frijol, you know, bean tacos on a flour tortilla. And that nourished us and, you know, gave us the energy to keep working in the afternoon.
What did you talk about?
Pues la labor, and how there were a lot of people that coming from Texas still, and so we would see, you know, Tejanos, because, you know, I was born and raised here, but we could identify in the fields, you know, who was the Tejanos and who were the locals, you know. And so we would talk about my grandmother, you know, at that point would give us, you know, some of the background that she remembered from coming up here. Like I say, stopping at the little chapel there in San Antonio and receiving the blessing for the trip, you know. And so, and the preparation of the tortillas and the cuidado with the víboras, you know, with the víboras in the ramas, you know.
In English? Snakes?
To be careful with the snakes in the brushes, you know.
Los ratas?
Huh?
Did you see ratas too?
No? In the ramas.
Yeah, no,
brushes.
I used to see ratas.
Maybe so.
I was afraid of them. And so, who was in the family that would go?
Well, the extended family.
Mm-hmm.
My great-grandmother, like I had said, my grandfather had already passed. My great-grandfather had already passed when I was even younger, before we started going out there. So we had my great-grandmother, Mama Cuca, my tia Basilia, my tia Chana, my mom and her brother, and then I remember a few times that Tia Chana would have her kids, and she had 3, Juanita, Susie, and Martin, who's now the artist here, and comes and does murals. And then all of us kids, my mother had 5 and 6, 7 kids. And so the oldest ones would be working in the fields, and usually she would get everybody started, you know, but the little boys, like from Willie down, they would get tired and start neciando, and so my mom would just, okay, anda ponte allá y cuida eso, you know, es el yacho, you know, doing something useful, you know, to go to one side and take care of the things over there, you know. They would end up playing, of course. but it took, and my sister, my older sister, was responsible for helping with the food. so she didn't have to work very much. So it was me, la burra, that would be out there in the field all the time. And I would really like it, really, Joel, because I would have like competitions with my uncle. He'd say, a ver si podemos hacer 100 pa lonche. Let's see if we can make 100 by lunchtime. And so, I'd be picking as fast as I could. I could ever, like 80 maybe. But that was better than 50.
And how did you know they were your hampers?
From where you leave them in your row.
Okay.
Yeah, and it wasn't until you were done, and almost to lunchtime that you went back through the rows and you marked them some way. And my mom would have us mark them with I think she would have us put like a yellow tomato on top or a green tomato or something.
We used to wear string. We have a string attached to our shirt. At the end of the string was a crayon, and we would mark our hampers that way.
Oh.
That's how we did it.
Uh-huh.
Okay. How old do you think was the oldest person in your family out in the field?
Well, my great-grandmother,
How old do you think she was at that time?
she was pretty old. She was in her 70s already, but she didn't hardly work.
When she was cooking?
Yeah, cooking. She took care of the lumbrita there on the side and made sure that we had our tacos calentitos.
Tell me more about your childhood memories in Sunnyside. Do you remember the railroad tracks? Did you play on there?
Well, we lived on the, Sunnyside is on the other side of the tracks. And I remember before you got to the tracks, but behind the housing, it used to be all woods back there. Now there's a factory, that factory that's back there. But it used to be all woods, and all of us kids used to love to go. It was really a challenge to go back there and be playing and running around and getting scared. And I remember once one of our neighbors, I think it was one of the Sarabias, who had fallen into a quicksand pit. And so there was a bunch of us out there, maybe half a dozen or 10, kids. We were panicking, and he just, he just started sinking deeper and deeper. And then somebody thought, I can't remember who it was, but somebody thought just to throw a branch out there, and pull him in. And so that's how we got him out and saved his life. Otherwise he would have died. But given all that, it's a pretty exciting place, and so, that was great fun. We also liked to play.
Did you have indoor plumbing?
Excuse me?
Did you have indoor plumbing in your house?
Not at first. We had the outhouse, and I remember that my tío Meme would come and move it, seasonally to a different location in the backyard. And so it wasn't until I was about 12 years old that we got indoor plumbing. So
Where would you get your drinking water?
from the well, we had to pump it. And I loved pumping the well. They would have me, wash my brother's uniforms because they all played. So when I was young, I was the one that was taking care of the laundry and stuff, and so particularly for them, as their coach would give them a brand new uniform, so my mom would, want me to keep them and have them as sparkling white and clean as when they had gotten them, So she'd put me with the tallador outside, you know, in a number 3 tub. And so I'd be washing the clothes out there, and
Did you take your bath in there too?
yeah, we'd use that for the bath, and inside the house, we'd take it inside the house, or during the summer, we'd just play outside with it, you know, same number 3 tub. But yeah, that's what we did, and the pumping, the water, even in the winter, Joel, wow. And more frequently than not, I was the one that would have to go out there and pump the water, you know, because my brothers were too little, and my sister was helping in the kitchen in the house, you know, and so, you know, who else was going to do it? So, you know, I remember I'd always be wearing trencitas, and so, you know, I remember just pumping as hard as I could, and you'd have to pour hot water in order to melt the ice, and pump as hard as you could, and my trencitas would bounce all over. So it was fun, you know. It was fun to even, you know, get up my energy that far, you know, that I could achieve that great, you know, task that my mother would give me.
Did you have to, you or the boys ever have to get water from the depot station?
Yeah, when the wells would, but not very frequently, because we had pretty good well water, you know. My uncle himself had divining rods. He had located the water with divining rods. You know how the stick dips down. Willow, it has to be a willow tree, and so we always had running water. I remember a couple of times, you know, that we'd have to go to the depot to get water. And that was across the tracks. You know, so it was hard.
What school did you go to?
Madison Elementary, and
How did you get there?
the bus came.
Did it come right to your house?
Right in front of the house. And that was the only stop. You know, there was that stop. Well, there was the Morenos in front of Martin Morenos and Gloria Ganares, and then there was a stop over here for the rest of us, and it didn't go any further because there was no out, you know, of the barrio. And then there would be one at Dorothy Street, and I think there was only one on Dorothy Street. Everybody had to get out. But that's how we got to school. All the kids were on the same bus.
Did you have any stories about discrimination about you yourself? I know you talked about traveling up here from the north, and there was discrimination on the way up here as your family traveled. How about here in Runaway, in Adrian?
Well, I used to hang around with my great aunt a lot. My mom couldn't manage to give me enough work to keep me busy, and so she would send me to go and see my tia Basilia, darle una vuelta. She would say, give her a turn, a spin, darle una vuelta, a spin. So I would go over there and dance around for a while, and then she would always be busy, you know, whether it was sewing or taking care of the garden or taking care of the chickens. And so she would have me do that. And then as I got older and could manage more tasks, she would put me to iron her clothes during the week. So on Saturday, she would call a cab, tell me to get ready, call a cab, and then go downtown with her. And we couldn't eat at the counter. And the clerks would like follow us around real closely. And my aunt would give me money, you know, because I worked all week, you know, ironing her clothes and helping her around the house and in the garden and stuff. So I had money. And I just didn't understand, you know, why those people were following us around like that, you know. But that's, you know, that's one of the instances that, you know, I remember clearly about discrimination. And then, of course, in schools, you know, we weren't allowed to speak Spanish in school. And at first, when I was in kindergarten, I couldn't speak any English. So I would just watch the other kids and then kind of follow along with what they were doing, you know. And after a while, you know, I kind of assumed that once the teacher gave you a paper and it had lines and figures on it, that you were supposed to color it, you know. So she had given me the paper, and she was talking. I didn't know what she was saying, you know. So I just started, you know, coloring it. She came and rapped me hard on my knuckles with her ruler. I didn't know what was going on. So I tried my best to, you know, learn, you know, what I was supposed to. English was one. So by the time I was in, like, I don't know, 3rd grade, I could speak and read English pretty good, you know. But it took a couple of years, since I didn't have the hearing, and we didn't have TV until I was about 10 or 12. So that was a difficult thing too.
Did you speak mostly Spanish in the home?
Yeah, and then when I was older, like in high school, there was a lot of opportunities for me to use my Spanish. That my great aunt, Tia Basilia, again, the lady who was really a role model for me, you know, hardworking, you know, very industrious, you know, played the guitar and sang and took care of her garden, sewed, and all that.